Reality is fragile. Layers of code, history and perception stitched together. But what happens when the seams split? When the forgotten signals resurface and become something else entirely? Welcome to Glitch Reality. Before we descend into tonight's story, a quick signal boost from beyond the static. Glitch Reality is still expanding. First, our new comic adaptations are always available on Global Comics and Webtoons. If you ever wanted to see the horrors rendered in ink and shadows, this is for you. Secondly, Glitch Frequencies on SoundCloud is now up to episode 11. And finally, the code is taking a new form. A glitched reality horror game is officially in development. You can come watch it in real time. The first development diary is now live and completely free on the Patreon. It's raw, unscripted, and it's just beginning. Now, they say fear often wears a familiar face. But what happens when that face is your own? This is the time I met Siren Head. I've always been the kind of person who prefers dead silence to the city noise. Give me an overcast sky and the sound of the wind through the trees and honking horns over TikTok notifications any day of the week. So when Darren suggested we take a hike, I didn't hesitate. We both needed it. Burned out and overexposed, suffocating under screens, we figured a weekend away from everything digital would be good. No signal, no stress, just a couple of mates, 2 thermostats of tea, and the kind of isolation people used to write poems about. We drove past about 2 hours out of town, past the edge of the Peak District, but short of anything on a tourist map. Darren had read about this old logging trail near Pine Bridge, one of those villages that had a population sign of a single digit. It had long since fallen off the official routes, tucked away behind gated fences a few miles off a dirt road. But apparently, if you parked near the old stone bridge and cut through the barbed wire, in the hedge there was a gap. You would hit a trail. It looped through an ancient pine forest. No tourists, no noise. Just quiet. We parked the car, shouldered our bags, and stepped into the tree line. It was late afternoon, around 4 p.m. That weird limbo time where the sun's light is still strong, but it's already beginning to cool. The forest was beautiful. It was raw. It was untouched. The trees stood tall and tense, packed like old soldiers. Their trunks lined with moss. The ground thick. The only sounds were the crunching of our boots and the occasional creak of the wind-shifting branches and streams tickling somewhere off to the left. We made small talk at first. Work gripes, mutual friends, the usual, what you would do with a lottery money kind of ramble. But the further we got, the less we talked. Not because things felt wrong, or at least not yet, but because the forest demanded attention. There was a heaviness to the air that silenced you, not out of fear, but out of reverence. About 40 minutes into the trail, a path curved gently, following the line of a faded trail marked by trees. And then there was another path, veered to the right, completely overgrown, tall ferns blocking the way, and a tangle of brambles choked the space between the trees. I paused. Guess which way's the actual path? Darren grinned and pointed to the right.
That one.
Of course he did. Darren was always the guy who wanted to take the road nobody else had walked. Not out of deep philosophy or anything. He just liked the idea of finding something others hadn't. I sighed. It's probably just dead ends and ticks. He shrugs.
Or it's got something cool. Maybe an old cabin or a cave. Come on, don't be boring.
I didn't argue. I should have argued. I should have insisted that we stick to the left, take our peaceful loop and be home by dusk. But instead, I followed him. The overgrown path wasn't really a path at all. It was a slow motion struggle through branches and nettles and a constant battle with reclaiming nature. But about 10 minutes in, the growth started to thin. The forest opened up, and then we saw it, a clearing, and in the centre stood a tower. This clearing, it wasn't unnatural. It didn't mean man-made, or it didn't feel man-made in the obvious sense. I mean, it felt something had pushed the trees like they weren't cleared by tools or machines, but had simply chosen not to grow any closer. The soil was patchy, pitted with stones and soft depressions, and the temperature shifted the moment we stepped in. I swear it dropped by at least 5 degrees. And right in the centre stood a tower. It was tall, maybe 40, 50 feet, and skeletal, built from rusted steel girders that climbed skyward like bones reaching for salvation. Not modern, not sleek. This thing was Cold War era at best. Corrosion ran down its length. Streaks of reddish-brown and thick black cables hung limply from misdirection snakes along the ground, before disappearing into the tree line like dead vines. At its base, concrete unit hut, about the size of a public toilet. The door hung open on hinge, swaying ever so slightly with each passing gust of wind, letting out a low, rhythmic creak like something breathing, slow and heavy. Darren started walking towards it. I reached out and grabbed his arm. Dude, seriously, this looks like a setup from a horror film. Can we not be those guys? He smirked and brushed me off.
Mate, relax. It's just an old relay station or something. This is what urban explorers live for.
Urban exploring. This was Darren's new obsession. A couple of months ago, he had gone down the YouTube rabbit hole of people breaking into derelict asylums, forgotten subway tunnels, or Cold War bunkers, filming everything with a GoPro, and had the balls of someone who really clearly didn't care about tinnitus or ghosts. Since then, he had been itching to find a place of our own, and now, here it is. He pulls out his phone.
No signal. Figures.
I looked around. The place had a weight to it. Not spiritual, not mystical, just heavy. Like someone standing beneath a thunderstorm that hadn't broken yet. You could feel it in your skin, in your stomach, like you were being watched by the forest itself. The tower didn't make any noise at first, just stood there, a monument to something that had been long forgotten. Then I heard it, a hum, low and steady, the kind you don't hear as much as you just sense. In your jaw, behind your eyes, like a skull being used as a tuning fork. I rubbed the bridges of my forehead, trying to shake off this pressure. You hear that? Darren pauses.
What?
That hum coming from the tower. He tilted his head.
Nah, I don't feel anything. I don't hear anything.
Of course he didn't. While I stood there, staring at this thing like it might just come alive, Darren was already crouched at the side of the concrete shack, laughing.
Get over here. You've got to see this.
Graffiti-covered walls. Most of it faded or childish. Usual stuff. Stick drawings, pentagrams, some nonsense about aliens. But one tag to me really stood out. Thick, red spray paint. Fresh. The letters uneven, but legible. Don't listen to it. It was just a message. Or was it a warning? A desperate one. I stepped back. My gut twisted. Yeah, I've seen enough. But Darren had other ideas. He ducked into the shack. Oi, don't go in there.
I'll be quick.
The interior was worse. Mold climbed the walls, the air was stale, filled with stink of rotting insulation and old copper. Inside, some sort of equipment box sat mounted on the wall. Its panel was ripped open. Wires splayed out like organs. Darren, being Darren, poked them with a stick. Can you not? We don't know what this is. Could be live. Could be cursed. It could be full of mutant mountain raccoons. He laughed, pulling back.
All right. Chill. I just wanted to see if it worked.
Then we both heard it. A short burst of static. Faint, like someone tuning a dial through an empty channel. We froze. Then silence.
Okay, that was weird.
Darren said as he stepped out the shack. Neither of us spoke for a full minute. Just stood there, in the shadows of the metal tower, listening to nothing and everything all at once. That's when I noticed something even worse. There was no birds, no wind, and no forest. Just us, the tower, and this pressure mounting behind my eyes. Let's go. Darren didn't argue. We left the clearing without looking back. That feeling, that pressure, it didn't leave. It followed. We didn't talk much on the way back. There wasn't tension between us. It was something outside us, like the woods themselves had pressed onto the world. Our footfalls felt like an intrusion. Each snap of a twig, or our boots echoing, all happened too loudly in the air. There were no birds, no insects, no rustling of leaves. It felt like we were walking through a photograph, trapped in between frames. Darren kept fiddling with his phone, holding it high, angling it all around, hoping to catch a signal. But no luck. I caught him frowning at the battery indicator. It was draining way too fast. It was like something pulling on it. Mine was the same. Half hour ago, we were at 80%. Now both of us were in the red.
Swear my phone has never drained this fast,
Darren had said. Yeah, mine too. We tried to laugh about it, but the sound died in our throats. It felt forced. Wrong. Darren was the kind of guy who could joke his way out of pretty much anything. He had that laid back, nothing shakes me vibe, but not now. His shoulders were tense. His usual swagger had turned to short, sharp glances over his shoulder.
I'm not gonna lie, mate,
he said after a few minutes. I feel like we're being watched. Then I realized he wasn't trying to break the silence anymore. He was scared. I wanted to say something to ground us. Something like, it's just adrenaline. We're psyching ourselves out. But before I could open my mouth, help, I fell. The forest split open with the sound of my voice screaming. Not yelling, screaming. Panic, terror, confusion, raw and primal. Like it had been ripped out of my lungs. I stopped dead. Darren turned around so fast he nearly slipped on a mossy patch.
What the hell was that?
I couldn't answer. The scream had come from behind us, somewhere deep in the direction of that tower. Then it came again. Help! Please! Darren looked at me. He looked at me like I had grown a second head.
What is that? Was that you?
I shook my head slowly.
Seriously, was that you?
No, I whispered. I didn't say anything.
Mate, it sounds exactly like you.
I didn't respond. I couldn't. My chest now felt hollow, like something had sucked the air out of me. The scream, it wasn't just my voice. It was the exact words I would have used if I was in trouble. The same pitch, the same rhythm. As if someone had taken a recording of me at my most terrified and just played it back. We stood in stunned silence, and then, please, help, I can't get up. Same words, same tone, identical.
An echo.
Darren offered, very weakly. I shook my head. Echoes don't repeat like that. Not with that perfect clarity. Someone is messing with us.
In the middle of nowhere? With that kind of voice technology, are they that good?
We stood shoulder to shoulder, eyes scanning the trees. Every shape between the trunks looked like it might move. I swear I saw a silhouette shift, just for a second. But it could have been a light. Could have been fear. Darren reached into his bag. I pulled out a walkie-talkie, cheap, plastic and half-charged. They were just for fun, we said, a bit of retro adventuring. He clicked it on. But beneath the static, there was something else. Another layer of sound. Help! I fell! We both froze. He turned the volume up, holding the walkie closer to his ear. The voice repeated, faint, distant, like a memory trapped in a radio broadcast. Then clear, loud, unmistakable, my voice again. Help! I fell! Coming through the walkie this time, though. Darren flinched. He dropped the device, clattering it to the dirt, letting out a long, broken hiss.
Tell me you programmed this,
he said, half joking, half pleading. I didn't. The walkie cracked again. This time it wasn't me, though. It was Darren. His voice, low, urgent.
Please, don't leave me here.
He looked stunned.
I didn't say that.
Then another voice came through. My mum's voice.
Love, dinner's ready.
My knees buckled. I had to crouch, breathing heavy, hands digging deep into the earth. That voice was perfect, not just in tone, but in context. A memory I hadn't thought about in years. She used to call me like that when I was playing for outside for too long. That exact rhythm, that exact pitch. There was no way anyone else would know it. I stood slowly. Darren's face was now draining of colour. He was shaking now.
Seriously, what the fuck is this?
I didn't answer, because in that moment, I realised something. This wasn't mimicry. It wasn't some old recording. Whatever was out there was learning. Watching us. Studying us. Using our memories like tools. The walkie let out a final hollow click and went dead. And in the void of the silence that followed, I realised something worse. The voice hadn't just called to me. It was calling for me. It was strange how terror works. It doesn't always scream at you to flee. Sometimes it just stops you, roots you in the ground like a corpse on its feet. That's what it did to us. We stood there, surrounded by trees that now felt like walls. With this goddamn walkie-talkie silent, Darren's hands now shaking, and the echo of my mother's voice still ringing in the air. Then, at once, it all went quiet again. Not just the absence of noise, the presence of silence. So heavy it pressed against your own skin. Your ears strained for anything. A breeze, a bird call, even your own breath. But the forest felt vacuum sealed. The kind of silence you get before a storm. Or something worse. And then we hear it. A sound, not loud, but deep. A kind of low frequency static, like a hum, like a radio caught between channels. It wasn't just in the air. It was in us. In our skulls. Behind our eyes. My molars ached like I had bitten into tinfoil. Darren clutched the side of his head and muttered,
What is that? What is that?
And then I saw it. At first, I thought it was just a tree. Tall, unmoving. Just another part of the warped, vertical forest. But then it jerked. Twitched. It was wrong. Like it didn't move. It skipped, like frames missing in a film reel. 1 second it was upright. The next it was closer. Then closer still. And with each shift, the air vibrated. Harder. The radio hum grew and grew into a distorted siren warming up. The thing stood between two dead pine trees, towering at least 40 feet tall. Its skin, or what I believe was its skin, was stretched tight over its immaculated, emaciated limbs, raw, withered and textured like dried leather over bone. Veins pulsed faintly beneath the surface, but they didn't carry blood. They carried static. Its arms, way too long. One hung down by its knees, ending in fingers like rusted antennae. The other was curled into its side, twitching every few seconds, like a broken puppet string. But the head. My God, its head. There was two of them, but not heads. Sirens. Full-blown, rusted, wartime era air raid sirens. Bolted where the skull should have been. The cables, thick, sinew-wrapped around the base, like tendons trying to hold mechanical parts in place. One siren faced front, the other swiveled back and forth, scanning. Then, without a warning, one of the sirens flared to life. The cone buzzed, clicked, then played a sound. My voice crackled and panicked. "Darren, over here." I glanced at Darren. He was frozen, staring at it, mouth slightly open, eyes wide, with the kind of fear I had never seen in him before. Then another sound, the second siren. It was a police dispatched message.
Missing person report 4. Redacted. Last seen at 4:37 p.m. near Pinebridge Ridge. Suspected accident. Unconfirmed. Visual on suspect.
Then a pause, and one final sentence.
Subject still alive. Proceed with caution.
The siren stopped. But the sound didn't end. The static stayed in the air. A heavy electrical dread hung between the trees. I swear the trees around the creature leaned away, not like they were bending with the wind, but like they were trying to flee nature itself. Nature did not want to be near this creature. Darren grabbed my arm.
We have to go.
And then the sirens, they turned. Both of them now facing us. I didn't see its legs move. I didn't see it walk. One moment it was still. The next, it was closer. Only 20 feet away. Its sirens now groaned. And from the left speaker, a new sound emerged. Not a scream. Not a word. Just laughter. My laughter. Mixed with static, warped, and played at the wrong speed. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. But all I could do was listen. With a sudden gust of air to our face, it woke us up. We ran. We ran like idiots. Untrained, panicked, clumsy idiots. Branches whipped our faces. Roots caught our boots. Pine needles slashed at every inch of skin they could. We didn't care. The only thing that mattered to us was getting away. But from what? That was the part I don't know. I couldn't name it. Couldn't describe it. In terms that made goddamn any sense to me, there was no description. How do you run to something that skips towards you like cutting scenes from a film reel? How do you outrun a voice you already own? And behind us, the siren started again.
Subject is fleeing. Direction, Southwest Quadrant. Updated timestamp, 5:06.
A static burst followed. Darren's voice played.
Come back, I'm lost.
I turned mid-run, heart hammering. He was right beside me. Pale and breathless, eyes wide. Did you?
No.
He said before I could even finish.
That wasn't me. Keep moving.
So we did. The forest started to thin out by now. Based on how far we'd come in, we should have been approaching the main trail. Hell, we should have been out of the trees entirely and back on the gravel road where we parked. But every turn led to more trees. The same trees. I recognised the splintered birch with fungal growth curling up its side. I remember the rock, outcropping shaped like a jagged smile. I even saw our own footprints, fresh, unbroken, running in a loop. We're going in damn circles! Darren looked around, eyes scanning like a cornered animal.
That's not possible.
It is if the forest itself is... I stopped. If the forest itself is part of it. If it's not just hiding in the trees, but controlling them. A short, sharp burst of white noise penetrated the air. Both of us dropped indistinctly, hitting the dirt hard. Something massive passed through the trees ahead, moving sideways, fast and silent. The limbs didn't disturb the branches, They passed through them like holograms or ghosts. The voice crackled through the air, louder than before. No walkie, no speaker, just there, woven into the wind itself.
Missing people. Lost scene. 50A. Final status. Unknown.
I checked my watch. 5:08 exactly. It's predicting us, I whispered. Darren looked at me, genuinely afraid now. Not just of what we were running from, but of me.
How the hell is it doing that?
I don't know, I said.
But it's not just chasing us. It's cataloging, logging, like we're part of some broadcast. Like a TV show. No, like a simulation. Like it's logging our data.
Darren went pale. Another burst of static. Then, something new. The sirens switched to a different frequency. Lower, almost mournful. The sound of children crying, then a woman screaming. Then, silence. And then...
Subject, Darren Harris. Status, lost.
He stopped moving.
What the fuck did it just say?
I grabbed his sleeve. Don't listen.
No, what did it say? What did it just call me?
Don't listen. But it was too late. He yanked his arm away from me towards the sound. It had took him and hooked it in his mind. His shoulders trembled. The forest felt like it shifted around him. Trees arching, soil folding in patterns now that rippled in water.
Darren, this way.
But this was his mother's voice. His mother had been dead for 15 years. I ran after him, dodging trees, heart pounding in my throat. But he was already too far ahead. Already stepping into their trap. I ran blindly, tearing through the trees, lungs burning, heart pounding like a war drum. All I could hear was Darren's name being called over and over, from everywhere, from the wind, from the sirens, from the trees themselves. It felt like, Darren! Darren!
Darren Harris. Identification. Status, lost.
I kept shouting for him, screaming his name, like it was some kind of ward against whatever had him. Darren, where are you? Where are you, Darren? But no response. Just the crunch of my boots against rotting needles. The sharp sting of thorns across my arms. The opposing weight of a forest that no longer obeyed nature. Then I heard it. Not a voice this time, but movement ahead of me. Heavy, deliberate. Twigs breaking under slow, monstrous steps. I ducked behind a fallen log and held my breath. Chest rising and falling in pained jerks. I peeked over the hedge. Siren Head. Be careful when you go out exploring, because you never know what you might find. There will be a part 2 to this story continuing this adventure. It will be after the next season. But until then, there is a lot more for you to experience. You have all the things like the comics, the Patreon, the Instagram, all of it's there and out there for you to experience when you're ready. I hope you enjoyed this one-off special, my time with Siren Head. Stay tuned. Next month, we will have the next one-off special, the Mothman Tales. Until then, just remember,
Keep an eye on that glitch, because sometimes the glitch is truth.